This is a very old video, but I thought we need a little comic relief here. If I can get it to play.
Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, das Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Okay. So just the importance of communication, just a little humor. Amy Botham is ill right now. She's battling allergies, and I know she's been out a lot. But Wendy Martell is the coordinator for the foundation, and she's here. She's going to speak to us about foundation updates. Wendy?
Good morning. First off, I got the message this morning I was going to be here, so bear with me. I don't have a lot prepared, so if you have questions, you're more than welcome to ask if I don't hit on something. The foundation currently has over 180 scholarships that are available for students. The biggest thing with our scholarship program is if they don't apply, they can't be receiving benefits. So we need to get as many students on board and applying as we can. Like I said, there's over 80 scholarships right now. We have 20 or more that didn't get awarded last semester or last award period because we didn't have anybody that met the criteria for it. So if your department is one that has scholarships and you know that nobody's applying for them, push to get them in there. One application, they fill out one application and it automatically matches them to what they qualify for. So they fill out one application and it applies for every scholarship that they qualify for. There is a paragraph in there about why they deserve a scholarship. It's not an essay. I tell the students numerous times, it's not an essay. You don't have to write 2 or 3 pages. Just put your little paragraph in there about why you need the scholarship, what your plans are for the future. You're good to go. The scholarship portal opened January 1st. It'll be open until March 31st. At that time, it'll close. We'll start the selection process, and they should be notified no later than the beginning of June that the scholarships have been awarded. They'll be awarded for the fall 2018, spring 2019 semesters. Any questions at this point? Anybody not familiar?
Do you have a sense of whether or not
the majority of them are from traditional students. We do have some that are strictly for online. We have some that will go either way. So we have some that there's no criteria of what they have to be. So we can push them for all of them. Yes, ma'am. Some of you may know that I started in this position in August of last year, and there's some procedures that haven't been set up in the past, and this is one of them that I'm wanting to get set up so that we can notify the departments each year of what their scholarships are that are available, who applied for them, and who got these of the scholarships. So that's something, if anybody has any input, please email me and how the best way to do that is. Like I said, there are some scholarships that nobody even applied for, not even that they didn't meet the criteria. We have some that there was no applicants whatsoever. There is, and I have these little sheets for you. It's got the information on the website. Basically, if you go to the Students tab on the website, go to Scholarships, it'll take you, and it goes to ctcd.academicworks.com, and that'll give you a list, and you can go through there and see what the qualifications are for every single scholarship. But I have this. If you want, Dean Anderson, I can send you a visual of this and you can send out to everyone. I've got some with me today if anybody wants them so they can start telling students about it. We have them in the foundation office as well. Any questions about them, they can call me. Yes, ma'am. Right. Okay. Right. And coming in mid-cycle, I say mid-cycle, it's mid-cycle for me because they've already been awarded. So it's hard for me to know where everybody stands, who knows, who doesn't know. I'm learning more and more about that. So if it's easier that I get in touch with the department chairs and just start communicating that way, I can do that. That's not a problem. Just let me know who you are and what department you're with and what information you're needing. Yes, sir. Many of the scholarships tell what the qualifications are for them as far as financial need, academic based. They're rated on a system with those criteria. If their GPA is part of some of them, they have to maintain a certain GPA, but mostly they're rated as according to how many of the qualifications they meet or exceed. The higher their GPA, the more points they'll get. The higher their financial need, the more points they'll get. I'm hoping in the future to get some of y'all to volunteer and help me do some of that process. The biggest thing is we need help. When they put in a scholarship, it goes into a certain category, which is basically what department. So I'm needing people from the departments to volunteer and say, hey, I'll help do scholarship awarding. They'll get a list of the applicants by their numbers, no names are involved, their qualifications, and then you go in and you can rate them according to a rubric that's in the system. And then we take those two scores and add them up, and we start at the top and go down. And that's why I'm wanting to get some input from each department and to help selecting those. One, we're looking at, last year we had over 300 applicants. That's a lot of applications to go through. If we can break it down and have, say, 3 or 4 people from each department, and you have 20, then that's a fewer number for each person to go through as opposed to me having to go through 300 plus. And we can have some accuracy and some input from the departments, and that would be great. Any other questions? Any ideas on how we can get the information out to all of you? And no problem. Right. April 1st. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way our system is set up, it has, they're called scopes. So a department would be a scope. So say the nursing scope would be assigned, those would go into the nursing scope, and then however many reviewers we have in that scope, they would be divided amongst those reviewers, and then they would review them. And it's all done on the computer system. There's no paper to be passed around or leaf through, or, yes, ma'am? Yes, they will be. The system is set up so that it will notify them. The system is set up so that it'll notify them when they register that they have a completed registration, but they have to register with the system, with the website. Then it tells them that they've successfully submitted their application. If they don't receive those, they need to call the office so we can look and see what's going on with their application. They will get an email. It's a matter of me going in and saying, okay, it's time to send that email, and I push it and it goes through. So yes, in the past it hasn't gone out. The computer system wasn't being utilized to its fullest extent. So we're going to try and remedy that and get as much information out to the students and you all as we can. Yes, ma'am. What information do you want out in that? Okay, if that's something that they're willing to do, it is a lengthy list. It would, just a link. I don't know that we have any way, I'll look into that and see.
You can send it to me.
Okay. You send out to the department chairs? Okay. Okay, that'll work. Any other suggestions or comments, questions? No? Okay. If anybody wants these, I have a stack of them. I'll leave them here with Dean Anderson. And if you have any questions, I'm in extension 1662. And hopefully we have a lot more applicants this year and a lot more awards given out. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I'm glad that people are thanking you. I find that gratifying to know that they appreciate what you do, because I certainly appreciate what you do. I mean, I know, I was just talking to Dan on the break, and he's talking about the amount of time he spends and updating his courses and developing curriculum, and I know that everybody does that, changing your assessments and just trying to get ready for your courses to run. And then I know how time-consuming that is, and that you spend as much time or more time outside of the classroom that you do in class. Sometimes I think administrators don't see that, but I think that this administration is getting a better and better idea about that and how much work is involved in teaching. And then if you have an overload, and it's a lot. And we ask a lot of you as an institution. So anyway, I want to thank you from me and my staff, because you're in and out of our offices all the time, and I see sometimes the panic on your faces. You're trying to get ready for the semester. You don't have classes covered. You can't find a teacher. You don't have somebody that's qualified. You have somebody that's qualified, but suddenly they tell you down the hill they're not qualified. You know, all the things that go on is a lot. So I appreciate it, my office appreciates it, and I think the administration appreciates it. So I'm about to talk to you. I know that if you went to TCCTA, you probably heard a little bit about Texas Pathways. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this. Raise your hand if you've been to sessions on it. Oh, this is like going to be fairly new. Okay, so this book, Redesigning American Community Colleges, this is the basis for what's happening in the state. The state is about to do a huge reform in what happens in community colleges. So Jenny was ahead of me. She's chair of the Texas Pathways Committee, and she went ahead and got copies of her books for her department to read. We're trying to get it either put up as an ebook or have something that can be checked out from the library. But if when we get that done, I'll let you know, and I suggest that you read the book, because it's actually fascinating reading. I thought I was going to have a hard time getting through it. I didn't have a hard time at all. It's really interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, and Jenny and I have a presentation we're sharing about it. First thing I guess I want to do is I want to give a little bit of a history about how we were and where we've gotten to where we are. And I think there will be things that ring a bell for you as I talk through this. But really, in the 60s, there were really three types of colleges, and they had benefits. They opened doors. They had liberal arts colleges. They had the public state universities, the flagship universities, and they had the Ivy League universities. And select people got to go to those universities. They were more affordable than now, but still very expensive then. But we knew that they opened doors for jobs. When the World War II vets returned, and we had to find jobs for all those returning vets getting out of the Army, everybody became aware that, you know what, we have to do more training. We have to have more education. You know, we were more industrialized, and between that and the baby boomers, we discovered we have to have highly trained workers. We have to have more educational opportunities. Community colleges were born because they wanted to expand enrollments and expand opportunities for the public. Especially with the civil rights movement, access became the key word. Everyone needs to have access to a higher education. And I don't know if any of you ever heard of A Nation at Risk, the article that talks about the impact of education and on the nation and the need for an educated populace. But even in A Nation at Risk that came out in that article, they didn't talk about college. They talked really about the need for people to finish K through 12. It really wasn't until much later that they talked about how college did make a difference, and where before, where it was a high school diploma that opened doors for you and allowed you to make a wage that you could support your family, now you needed to have at least some college. And these days, it's probably you must have some kind of award, some kind of certification, or some kind of degree. So community college, it's expanded, but in 1990, things really changed with something called the Student Right to Know and Campus Security Act. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that's the first time where people are starting to look at college performance. The Department of Ed and Washington wanted to know, how are colleges doing? We're sending all these people to college. Are they really becoming educated? How does that tie to the workforce? What's happening there? And President Obama even created monetary incentives. I mean, he started saying, you know, you can get money if you will do these state reports reporting your graduation rates, your completion rates. And even private philanthropy got really, really involved because they were so worried about people getting their degrees and people completing college. So you probably heard of the Ford Foundation and their Bridges to Opportunity, and they concentrated on low-income adults being able to complete college. I know you've heard of the Lumina Foundation and Achieving the Dream. A lot of schools here in Texas participated in Achieving the Dream, and that really was all about good institutional outcomes, persistence. And again, they tried to push so more students would have degree completion. And then the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they kicked in $385 million on the Developmental Education Project, trying to get students through school and getting them to complete. And you know what the outcome was? The outcome was they showed a modest improvement that faded away the further away they got from the end of the project. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of effort. For the schools that were involved in Achieving the Dream, it was a lot of work. And they really didn't have very good results with that.
Hi guys, Jenny Shotwell, Department Chair, Developmental Studies. Thanks. She has me come in and do the math, so here I am. So data, you know, when we first started looking at our schools, what we had was 20% of the first-time full-time enrollments graduated from the original institution that they started in. 29% took them 6 years at open admissions institutions. And then a number of these colleges has single-digit graduation rates.
The open admissions was 2-year college.
Correct. The open, did everybody hear that? She said the open admissions was 2-year institutions. So what we looked at now, there's been a report from the National Student Clearinghouse from fall 2010 cohort. Nationally, the rate is 42% of full-time students will graduate in 6 years. In Texas, we're at 32%, and at CTC, according to the Coordinating Board Almanac, we are at 23.2%. Okay, so the shock and awe moment. Can I have everybody stand up? Haha. I hate going to these presentations. I'm so excited to finally get to do this. Everybody stand. Don't y'all hate that? I'm going to group you up. You're going to talk to the neighbor next to you. Just kidding. Just kidding. Turn around. No, I hate those. I always walk out of those at TCCTA. I'm like, I don't want to play with, I don't play with others. So, roughly according to the sign-in sheet, there's about 125 of us sitting in this room right now. Ready? That is the number of 8th graders from 2004, let's pretend. 2004 8th graders. Okay, can I have everybody sit down except my department, the math department, and office technology? Okay, look around. Those are the only 8th graders that received any kind of award. Any. Wow, see? There's that moment. That's what I want to do. I got goosebumps. See? You guys can all sit down.
She's been waiting to do that.
I've been waiting a long time. So can you imagine that? I mean, I've got a kid at Charles Patterson, you know, I forgot Go Cav, I think that's what they are, and I'm terrified, because what am I going to do with it? He's probably going to be one of those 4, you know, and so that's my worry, is he's going to be one of those 4, even though we're pushing him. But think about that.
So what the state has determined is we have a huge need for reform. We're not being very efficient in what we're trying to do. And so that means a change in processes and procedures. They want to connect the vertical silos of operation. They need more horizontal communication going on. We need to reorganize if necessary. We need to provide more student support. And by more student support, it really ties in exactly with what Julie was saying. We need to track our students, not just the instructor. The institution needs to track the progress of the students. Somebody needs to stay on top of them from the time they come in to the time they end, and they need to wrap their hands around them and make sure that they are doing the things they need to do. This book is really good about explaining why students don't do what they need to do, and it's astounding. And honestly, I had a guy in my office the other day, a student, and he came in, and he was actually there on an appeal. He was on suspension, and he had taken several semesters and just had a transcript full of F's. And he wanted to proceed. He wanted permission to come back in and take a course and to proceed on his degree plan. And I said, well, what degree plan are you on? And he was on the math degree plan. And I said, are you good in math? And he went, no. And I said, well, so far you've had a hard time like passing everything, you know, and we looked at his TSI score. And I mean, the math degree plan is a tough degree plan. It's got a lot of math on it. And so he hadn't passed history, he hadn't passed, you know, we had to figure out what course can he take to raise his GPA that he can get an A or a B in. And he pulled out a, it was like a data sheet from a bioengineering institute, and it showed all the courses that he had to have, and he was just adamant he had to have those courses, but he just kept taking the courses and kept getting Fs. And so I said, you know, I think we really need to rethink about this degree plan. Maybe what we need to do is try another degree plan for a while, and when you get your grades back up, you can come back and try this degree plan. He wasn't having it. There was no way I could talk him out of it. He was determined. He was going to go to that school. He was going to go into bioengineering, and he was going to take these courses until he passed. Well, I mean, he was going to crash out before he would ever have a chance to do that. So we finally ended up, after much, much talk, maybe an hour in my office, we made a deal that if he would take a philosophy course, which was the only thing on that degree plan I could see that he hadn't tried and he might be able to pass, I said, if you can bring me an A or a B, we'll proceed down the path of this degree plan. If not, we really need to think about doing something else. But it's just stuck in his mind. He just was not going to hear anything else. He was just, that's what he wanted to do, and that's it. And this book gives a lot of examples like that, where when we work with students, and especially students in community colleges, they're kind of left on their own to try to figure out how to get things done. And so one of the things we want to talk about is we need to talk a little bit about how, according to this book, according to what the state is expecting us to do, we need to think a little bit about changing some of our ideas about instruction. And so we're going to talk about that today. Now, we can have discussions about that, but I'm just telling you, I'm relating what's in the book, and I'm relating that this book is the basis of the state-mandated change. Yes?
The name of it?
The name of it is Redesigning America's Community Colleges. And it's really, the three authors on it are Thomas Bailey, Shanna Smith Jaggers, Jaggars, and Davis Jenkins. And then at the bottom it says A Clear Path to Student Success. And actually these are three researchers who have worked with community colleges for a combination of 60 years. And with all the research and the data that's been gathered, and with their experience with community colleges, they've come up with a very compelling reason for us to make some changes. Okay.
All right, we tried to shorten the slide so it wasn't too wordy, so I might read some things, so I apologize if I do. But what the book describes, and by the way, with the book, if departments want to order it, Regina will order it for you. She does order it at $40 a piece. I think at Amazon it's like $17.99 for the ebook. For the ebook? $29.50 at Amazon. Ebook I think was like $18. And I read different books than Jan does, so I know it's not exactly 100% stimulating. But when you get into the stimulating piece, it's more like oh, that sounds familiar. And so this is what I'm about to read to you mostly. But the book describes the current model that the community colleges have as a cafeteria model. It's defined as the Cheesecake Factory menu. Anybody ever eaten a Cheesecake Factory? Anybody read the entire menu when they sit there to order? No. Bertha, just the one. But you know, so, and then you have to find that what you want and pick what you want. And so what they describe it as is when your students come in and they're trying to figure out which classes to take, they're reading that Cheesecake Factory menu and they have no idea what they want. And you can imagine, I think they describe it like I have a math degree. So when I was going to go take my social science class, I'm sorry, Tracy, you know I love you wherever you are, but I wouldn't take marriage with counseling. What does that do for me, right? So I would, if I was going to do a social science elective, I probably would take logic. Does that make sense, right? And so what happens is we give them those options, we give them those 30-something classes to choose from, they have no idea what would best fit what they want to be when they grow up, right? So it's, sorry, again, Tracy, you know I love you. All right, so what they describe the cafeteria model to be is students are expected to explore an array of program and courses with minimal guidance, have too many options, and not enough structure. So for the faculty members that are over there in registration this week and last week, did you get that feeling? You got that feeling, didn't you? Because you're trying to work through WebAdvisor, finding which class is next, finding what would fit in their degree plan, what would work, what wouldn't work. And you got little to no guidance when you were sent there to help them. You guys got that 2-inch binder, right? Learning outcomes are often not well aligned with further education and employment, and we talked about that in the field of study. What's been happening, unfortunately for me and my staff, is I've been put into a bunch of these committees across campus, because now, because of this chair that I have, the hat that I wear for Pathways, I'm now in an enrollment management committee because of registration, and what we're doing here is going to affect registration totally. I'm in an institutional action committee that is the across the board, horizontal silo, trying to defeat that purpose. And so everything that affects the student experience on campus is coming under this Pathways. So we also want you to know that we're not just picking on you. I enjoy picking on the others as well. Students are taking a placement test really just to tell if they need remedial or if they need, or if they're college ready. We know that. Minimal monitoring on how students are progressing or getting off track, and that's where that Target X piece is going to come into play. You know, we start them on a degree plan. Do we know they finish the degree plan? Why don't they finish the degree plan? Do any of us know that? No, most of us look at what we have in front of us in place now, those 30 students we have in the class, if you're lucky to get 30 that you have in the class. Students must recognize when they need help and seek it out on their own. You know, we're missing some touch points with them, that we're not reaching out to them, and that Target X program is going to be helpful with that. Faculty feel isolated and often unsupported in their teaching. Is there anybody in here that doesn't feel that? What I thought? Okay. Rather than working, this is a big one, and I know this is going to be the one that's going to cause us to step outside. But rather than working on improving student weaknesses in classrooms and self-direction, for example, if I ask probably 10 to 15 of you, what's wrong with your student population? The response is going to be, they have no time management, right? They have no motivation, right? They can't do anything on their own, right? And then the next statement that's going to come out of probably the majority of those people I talk to is what? Whose problem is that? Same. Right? Does anybody say, is it my problem in my classroom? Can I teach that to them? I'll teach that to them. Let me teach them time management. Let me teach them how to be self-discovery, right? How to be motivated. Does anybody say that? Yeah. Thank you. My people all raised their hand. I appreciate you. Love you all. But a lot of us blame the student, right? No? Okay, good. I hope so. Yes, we blame the high school blames the middle school blames the elementary school blames the parents. We got it. It all comes back to me because I'm all the above. All right, but what we need to do is we need to work on change, like she spoke about when we're changing our instructions, we need to look at that and say, hey, can't I help them with this? Can't I teach them this? Is there anything I can do to make that a better experience for them? Because they're not all coming to my department where my department can teach them study skills in the curriculum. All right, we have one comment about the cafeteria type model is the more online classes they take, the more isolated and the more disconnected that student is from campus, right? You hearing me? May I quote my old boss, are you walking with me? Are we on the same path, right? And then there's a lack of interaction alignment towards student end goals. What the big catchphrase we get every time we go to a Pathways Institute is the whole point of Pathways is we're not going to look at checking the box, making these little things happen. Our goal is the end goal, and that's what we have to keep in mind the whole time with the student. So it's getting that bachelor's degree, getting that job, making that money.
So
you did too.
Okay, so what they describe as a cafeteria style model is where they feel most community colleges are now. And where they're trying to go, some of the suggestions that they think that we need to, and where we need to change is an emphasis on programs and intra-department goals as opposed to looking at things course by course. Now, I mean, what does that mean? Because we look at the ACGM, we have to go by the outcomes that are listed there, or the Weckham guides. And let me say that when we were talking about the philanthropists and they talked about that there was only modest positive change that faded away, the researchers did make the comment, this was not from individual faculty or staff. This was not from any group like that. The reason for the failures for those projects were systemic. They were in the way the colleges did business and in their processes and their procedures. So this is something that comes back to this new model, is that they're feeling, first of all, that people are siloed in their programs. They would like to see what they call more collaborative inquiry, which is further down the list, where there's collaboration between departments on what that student needs to get to the end goal and to get a job in what he wants to work in. We don't do that much. We're pretty isolated as departments. This is something really new and different for most schools. But it kind of does make sense because we do cross over in a lot of our disciplines. So that's going to be something that we'll be exploring. They also talk about starting with the students' end goals. In other words, what do they want to be? And then back up, which is, that's an old idea. That's like a Mager needs assessment, which was done in the 1960s. Back up from the job, back up step by step to see what they need in school. They want us to create program maps. And as Jenny said, they want us to limit our options. They feel like it's too confusing for the average student that comes in. They feel that they need career counseling, not just counseling and advising on what they're here to take, but they need more. Our Career Center needs to beef up, in other words, here on campus. They need to know all about the job, what it requires, what they need to do, and what they need to get while they're here. They also recommend e-advising. So again, that's not our decision. That's something that our administration needs to think about. But that way, the students can have access to an advisor without standing in long lines. They can have instant access, and they can get the information they need. Collaborative inquiry we just talked about. And to consider the co-requisite developmental courses as on-ramps to credit courses. In other words, the book and the research shows that many people felt cornered in developmental studies. They were prevented from going on to credit courses because they ended up spending so much time in developmental studies. And we learned from our co-board when the state data came in that they said as much as we wanted to help the student and give them all the prerequisite skills, what was happening with the students is they were never making it to the credit courses. They would bleed out of the system because they got so frustrated from being in developmental for so long, they never made it to the credit courses. And that's the idea of co-requisite as a support to the credit courses is really the way that they think that we should go. So this requires a lot of planning for CTC, and I have to tell you that Jenny kind of got chair by default. I mean, she was the only one keeping up with all the state reports and stuff. She's the one that kept us out of hot water. She was over there in her office ginning out all the reports and homework we were supposed to be doing for this, and everybody else was too busy. She's kept us on track, and she's got a lot of responsibility in helping us plan how this is going to happen, because it's not going to happen overnight. So one of the things we want to do is we need to all study the pathways information and the CTC data. And what we've done in our planning group is we created tasks that we thought needed to be done. And we tried to organize the tasks around departmental functions. We want to create task forces to determine how we can implement this kind of change, which is the third breakout this afternoon is a start on that. And then we need to determine the implementation dates. We need to see what kind of budget we need to do for the projects, create a timeline and track it. And we need to tie this into strategic planning, because strategic planning is about to begin, as they announced this morning. And that needs to be tied into pathways. Did I go into your slides?
Nope, this is.
Okay.
All right, and just to clarify, when Dean Anderson says departments, she's not exactly talking just academic departments. She's also talking student services, financial aid. Everything. It's a systemic-wide redesign. So again, we're picking on everybody. So some of the task forces that we've done is we've connected career services with departments and advisory groups. So Keisha Holman is actually coming to the advisory meetings for so that she can also meet with the workforce as well. So we've made that connection already. We need to create and implement 4-year degree plans with A&M and other universities. outside of just A&M, and to clarify and resolve any transfer issues, and that's what Dr. Garrett has mentioned earlier as well. What we're going to try, we're also going to go backwards and go through the ISDs as well. So the ideal image is when we start meeting with the students and getting CTC out there, they'll know, this is like big ideal. But those of you who have kids in middle school, have had kids in middle school recently, in 8th grade they do a career class. Does anybody know that? And that they're supposed to decide what path they're supposed, the endorsement they're supposed to be on at the ISD at that moment based on what they want to be when they grow up. And so we want to grab them there, talk about what they should take in the high school to get with us to where it align with our courses, and then our courses will align with A&M, for example. So they will know if they really want that path while they're in high school, and we can help them make those decisions there. Does that make sense? I know it's hard because I don't think I want my 8th grader to decide what he wants to be when he grows up in 8th grade, but that's the plan. Okay. We need to organize our departments into career clusters. For example, if we have what we're finding is students have extra credits transfer because they've changed their mind while they're here. But sometimes when they change their mind while they're here, it's really a similar program. For example, let's say they were in the nursing program, they decided, you know, nursing's not for me. Marvin's got an MLT program that's really close to it in terms of, you know, field of study. And so we're going to start trying to look at in the meta majors or in the career clusters to say, hey, these classes are in common with these degrees, so let's make them take those first, and then, does that make sense? Not putting math off till the end, right? All right, so we're going to collect data on the number of students who apply and those who attend and see where we're losing them in that phase. We've already started that process. We're also collecting data on students who don't return. Those of you who did those Excel spreadsheets recently, right? Made calls. We're also going to clarify more information on the website in terms of what jobs they can get. So we're going to beef up our website and make that be a selling point to come to CTC. And if those of you who have experienced registration last 2 weeks, this bullet was just added to improve the registration process. So we're a learning document. We will keep adding and taking away as needed.
So, for example, I went on a SACS visit in September, and I visited a school in North Carolina. And what they said kind of struck a chord with me. They said, you know what? Our registration used to be like the DMV, but now we've turned it into a concierge service. And really, I could identify with that statement, totally. And what they did was, and these are things that we're looking at right now, what they did was they had navigators. They invested in those little lights that you get in restaurants. They invested in 50 of those little suckers. And what they do is the students would come, they would sign in at reception, and they would get one of those things that light up. I don't know what you call those things. And then they would be picked up by a navigator. And the navigator would take them on a series of things so that instead of sitting there, they felt like they were getting something accomplished. They got their ID made. They filled out their degree plan. They took them over to visit the department, to talk to the people in the department. But if that little light went off, zip, they're back. They have their appointment with their advisor. That's how you turn a DMV into a concierge service. That's the kind of thing we need to be looking at. Our wait time and registration this time was 5 to 6 hours. At 5:30 one day, we closed the doors after people had been sitting there that long and said, I'm sorry, we're not taking any more students today. And we had 2 counselors quit. So it's not faculty, it's everything. But the part with the faculty that concerns me probably the most is that when we look at students and we see that they have motivation problems, they have time management problems, they have self-initiating problems, when we can recognize that these are things that are causing failure, what is traditional with faculty, college faculty across the nation, is that faculty view those as weaknesses, and that's outside my scope of instruction. And it has to be in our scope of instruction. It has to be that we teach them how to learn our discipline and how to learn in our courses. That has to be part of what we do. Does that mean maybe we need to have some blended, or we need to give more homework, or however we can fit that in, because it is a problem fitting it in. We have a whole lot of content to cover. We're obligated. We want them to be ready. We want them to be competent. And so hopefully this afternoon, I hope we can break out a little bit of time, because I would like to have a discussion about our views about rigor. I think we can have a really healthy, active discussion about that. What is rigor and what is not rigor? Because rigor is not really, really tight timelines. Rigor is not, that's being inflexible. We need, the rigor is shown in our outcomes. What do we expect that student to be able to do? And those outcomes need to be rigorous. And but it's our job to help them get there, to help them accomplish that. And so that's something that I separate from this part right here, that's something I think that we really need to have a discussion about. Because we don't want anybody to water down their course. Dr. Garrett's scared to death, even with dual credit and early college high school, that we may be watering down our courses. We don't want to do that at all. But we've had a lot of lessons with early college high school and with non-early college high school, that there are a lot of things that students just don't understand. They don't get. They don't have a background in. They've never done it. You know, they come from, you know, families that don't have timelines, that don't, you know, that don't do that. And that's part of what we need to help them with. But what Julie Starkey is doing now we have a silo with a dean who's all about student success. What we want her to do is we want her to come in when the students come in or the first sign of trouble, and this is why the early alerts are so important. We want her to wrap her hands around that student. She has a success team that's going to guide them through what they need to do. They're not going to do the work for them. We're not going to make our courses easier. We're not going to do any of that. But we are going to take more responsibility in tracking them through our programs. And she's going to help us do that, and she's going to take a lot of the load off of us, I think. Yes, Murad? Yep. Right.
Nurture.
Right.
It's tough love, which is understands we do.
Yeah.
And
And Murad, that's why we have to have some discussions on this, and we need to decide, and we're going to work in those breakout groups today, and we need to decide some of the things that should happen. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yeah. And we need to decide, because I really think there's a lot of things to talk about with this. And when I made the statement about how instructors feel like it's outside their scope, I'm quoting from this book, okay? So I'm just relating to you that this is the basis for the state, this is what the state's going by, and this is what we need to address one way or the other. If we're already doing it, that's fine. I'll just give you an example. You know, sometimes I see people and they come through and their final grade is a 69.5. And I think, how come they couldn't, like, give them a half a point, give them an assignment or something that they can get a half a point that makes a difference in passing and failing the course. But if you go to the instructor, sometimes the instructor will say, and I'm well aware of this, I gave them every kind of extra credit. I mean, I've already given them every point I can possibly drag out of the grade book, and I've given them all kinds of extra assignments, and this is as far as I can go with it. Okay, I get it. You know, so it's not so crystal clear. But these are the discussions that we need to have, I think. And I think they're healthy discussions. So tomorrow afternoon, the first task that we're going to work on, we've just tackled 5 of them. But the first tasks we're going to do are what can faculty do to retain students? What can be our role in that? And Kirsten's going to kind of head up that group. How to use data in decision making, and what kind of data points would faculty want or do you need to feel like you're informed about what's happening in your discipline? You don't have to run those reports. We just have to let the right departments know it would be nice to have this, and how often. So that's a discussion we're going to have. Do you want to know what your completion rates are? Do you want to know what your graduation rates are? Is that helpful to you? What information can we get for you to be able to make good decisions? I'm going to do faculty professional development needs for the new model, and I'm just heading up the group, but actually it's going to be y'all, whoever is in that group, telling me. The 4th group is how to integrate instruction and employment through more internships and projects. Dr. Hackett will take that because I think she can work in what can be done under Perkins so that you have funding. And then how to communicate more with industry and career centers. And I've asked Teresa, because Teresa's kind of the resident expert on communicating with industry. She does a lot with workforce and industry. And Janelle Deal does a lot with the ISD Career Center. So we'll have those two just head up that group. They're not going to make any presentation or anything to you. They're just going to make sure that the discussion is rolling, and then there'll be an agenda that you'll have. So here will be the agenda for tomorrow. When you're in your group, you'll select a chair, you'll select a note taker, you'll discuss the topic, you'll try to come up with 5 actions that faculty can take, and let me add to that, if there are actions you think the administration or another department needs to take, you need to add that also. Write up the report and submit it to me, and then at the very last we'll outbrief all the other groups, and we'll see where we are. So this is just a start, kind of rolling in that direction for Pathways. And I hope that we'll have healthy discussions. We need to have those discussions. We need to talk about that. Any questions?
When do we?
Well, yeah, we're supposed to be starting now, and actually we've been working on planning and going to see what other schools are doing for almost 2 years. Yeah, about a year and a half. And really, when different people report out, different schools report out what they're doing, they're saying, well, you know, we've jumped off the cliff and swam across the lake. And then some people say, well, we're like up to the ledge of the cliff, but we haven't jumped off. And our stance is, well, we're just walking up to the ledge. We're at the very beginning. A lot of other schools are way ahead of us. ACC has reorganized their catalog, and it's all color-coded around what they call mega majors, which are your clusters. So everything in nursing is in orange. If you want to know anything about nursing, you look for the orange color, and everything you want to know about nursing is always tagged in orange. It's all color-coded, it's all career clustered, and it ties to the ISDs. Ours doesn't have to tie to the ISD. I'm not sure that I agree with that, but we need to start moving in those directions. Those are the kinds of things schools are doing. A lot of it is systemic. I'd say the majority of this reform is systemic, but there is a portion, as I said, that has to do with instruction that will affect faculty. So, a good question. Did I answer it? Probably not, because we don't really know. We're moving ahead as fast as we can. We don't know when we're going to get there. We can kind of show you how we've a past timeline right now.
So
yes.
there's no imposed
There's no imposed, except I will tell you, for every conference that we've gone to, and especially the first one, the kickoff, it was every community college was expected to be there, and the people that showed up to that were chancellors, provosts, vice presidents. We were the only table of deans and chairs. So we came back because we didn't realize it was at that level. And we came back and reported to our administration, you know what, I mean, y'all need to be there, because they want the decision makers there. They want the people that are going to jump in and say, this is what we're going to do, and they want to hear what it is they're supposed to be doing. So at the next conferences, our administration was there. But we're kind of, we're not the very last, but we're kind of in the middle, I guess, about where we are in making this kind of change in terms of state schools. Okay, questions? So the good thing is, it can be really exciting, and we know we need to change. I mean, our data doesn't look good nationally. Our data doesn't look good in Texas. And our data doesn't look so hot at CTC. We need to change our systems, our procedures, our processes. We need to change so we can serve our students better. Because I know how hard you try. It isn't that individual faculty do not do an exceptional job. It's not about that. It's about how we collaborate and work together in a system. Okay? Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'll end on an upper, maybe. Maybe I can let these people go to lunch first. Think that'll be good?
Yeah, we need to see if lunch is ready.
Should be. All right, I ran some data this weekend while we were meeting to do the final touches on the presentation. So, question is, I'll only give the good news, I won't give the bad news, so we can end lunch on a good note. Withdrawal rates. Does anybody think their department has the lowest withdrawal rates for fall 2016 for central campus classes? Anybody think their department is the lowest? Yes. Be loud and proud. Who said yes? Who did? Office technology? You were tied for second. Anybody else think their department? Your entire department, you're first, tied for first. Now, when I did the classes, I did them based on just the acronym in the beginning of your class. That class belongs to your department. And I just did withdrawal rates and pass rates. So anybody else? Correct. You guys are tied for first. And I got one more that's tied for second. Anybody have an idea? Criminal justice. Now, first place has a 2% withdrawal rate, so that's W, straight up. And I did fall 2016, so I didn't want to put any extra students in there that we would want to discuss about. So this is fall 2016, straight up CTC students, allied health, so that includes EMT and nursing. And Ronnie's VOTEC area has a 2% withdrawal rate. Criminal justice and office tech has a 5% withdrawal rate. Now, if you look at it, now I can't speak for criminal justice, but it might be the fact that half their department carries a gun. But the other three have really hands-on advising 24/7 throughout their entire program. So think about that. I can give you the worst, but I'm not. I'll tell you guys that later.
Jenny? Size relates to that?
No, because it's probably really hard to tell, because the way they do their enrollments, those two do their enrollments, is they might have 30 students at one time, but the next day they have 28. So it's really, I couldn't get you an accurate picture of that. Lowest drop rate.
That should be last.
No, that's the most people that drop from your class. You don't, yeah. You want the lowest drop rate possible.
And did you compare?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to do that nationally. I don't got those kind of skills. They are not in Informa or Pivot Link, so no. There's a question over there. Actually, see, now you're going to get to my heart. Because I bet you I could probably find data that the students who fail in your class need a reading class. And a math class for yours, actually. Yeah. Okay. Right. The 23% is what we report on those CBM reports. So that's going to be Texas reportable, first time in college, full-time students. So I can try to look at it deeper, but I just pulled it from the coordinating board. Got it. Right.
Becoming a cash cow.
Right.
For that specific organization.
Right. Okay, I have one more good piece of data. So you 4 are going to go to lunch first. So pass rates. Who thinks they have the highest pass rates? Top 4. Is that nursing? Yes. Nursing has a 97% pass rate. Who was the next one? I heard Erica, right? Kinesiology. Yes, number 2, 87% pass rate. Anybody else? Criminal justice. You're number 4 with an 85% pass rate. I got one more. You're close, but not up there. Anybody? Nobody wants to be loud and proud and say me, 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 me? Fine arts department. 86% pass rate.